Well, I didn't really have a whole lot planned uh, for a live. I know I didn't do a Tuesday live, so I read my story portion this morning. It was quite a story portion as things are developing in the Ann Arbor, Michigan part of the story with the characters there. Um, I got something I ordered today. I got my new PLA uniform here. So it's actually the PLA Rocket Forces uniform. I ordered it because, hey, the way the future's going, you never know when something like that might come in handy. But yeah, there's been a lot of well, not rocket, rather missile strikes happening over there in Eastern Europe, occurring in Ukraine. And there have been multiple days in just the past week alone that there have been salvos of roughly 100 missiles or more fired per day in these, several days, about 4 days worth of missile salvos that have been launched in that country. So now, apparently, evidently, there's blackouts occurring there, and usually, when you're about to invade a country, you lob a bunch of missiles at them or conduct airstrikes or both. And we've been talking about the Russian buildup for a while here. It's been several weeks maybe on this channel. And I had said that, they could invade anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks or perhaps a little longer. It all just depends on weather conditions and if their forward deployed equipment and logistics are already set up and ready to go. Now, there's 300,000 and some estimate even more. I've heard people say that there's more. I don't know about that, but I know for sure there are the 300,000 that they're building up. And for a country the size of Ukraine, 300,000 after having ground down their forces as they have for the past 7 months, 300,000 is ample enough to get the job done there. So we're talking about an invasion force that's about twice the size of what we went into Iraq with. So, 160,000 ground forces is what the coalition went into Iraq with. But Russia is also, having their 300,000 plus forces that are about to go into Ukraine. So if there's a blackout occurring there, it's due to the missile strikes that they've been doing virtually most of the past week. So I'm going to greet everybody in here. Hey, Tommy, great to see you, man. Brings a smile to my face that you made it live. I hadn't seen you in a minute, man. Great to see you. Rebecca, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And, of course, my man Ken. Excellent. I'm glad you're here, Ken. Yeah, it's great timing. My PLA uniform came in just on time. I actually like the color scheme, It's like a piney type of forest scheme here. It's good camouflage. I mean, it didn't come with the rank insignia, the CHICOM Central Military Commission patch, nor did it come in with the flags or the branch of service and unit patches, but it's still a cool uniform nonetheless. Yeah. So, yeah, Tommy. I thought that this might be a really good thing to have for the future because you never know when such a thing could come in handy. I don't know if everybody here read my first typed out story, but in my typed out story, there was the character who is a former special operator, and he, of course, normally spec ops work in teams, but since he had to go in by himself, he wasn't Chinese, but he acquired a PAP uniform, a People's Armed Police uniform of their paramilitary, not this, but the other type, the PAP uniform, and he got in close with it. So I'm sort of thinking on that level when it comes to this type of attire here. You never know when it might come in handy. You just don't know. So It's great to see everybody. Let's see who's all in here. I know more people came in. Hey, Juan and Grandma Deb and everybody. It's great to see you all. So, yeah, I'm really happy that this showed up. But as far as what's going on in Eastern Europe, apparently there is now fighting going on in the Kherson area. Maybe they're taking the bait, like I discussed in some of my prior lives. They could be taking the bait, and they could be getting themselves embroiled in something that is ultimately going to become a distraction. Now, on the Duran channel, I had just listened to something, and I heard that there are evidently Polish troops being used in Bakhmut. They've been ordered into battle, and they're under Ukrainian command. Now, they're there as mercenaries, but they're actually Polish combat troops, but they're there as mercenaries, and evidently a lot of them got slaughtered in Bakhmut. So we already knew that they were operating there because if you remember, months ago, there was talk about Poland sending in troops, and they actually did send in some troops, also disguised as mercs. And they used Lviv as their mercenary and foreign weapon importation area, also their training area where they bring forces up to speed and get them ready to get to the front. And that area, Lviv, has been hit multiple times by Iskanders, which are tactical ICBMs, you know, or not, they're not ICBM, they're not intercontinental, but they're tactical ballistic missiles. And they've also been hit by Caliber cruise missiles and a whole slew of other weapons, you know. So I remember watching that one video. It was a foreign mercenary. It was an American who went in there, and he saw how bad Lviv was hit, and he said he tried to get the hell out of there because he wanted to escape with his life, because he said that's how bad it was when all the missiles came in and hit all those buildings and everything. I mean, that is a conflict where people are volunteering themselves to be pawns in a foreign game played by different elites. It doesn't matter what side you pick. If you're over there volunteering yourself to be a Western merc, or if you're volunteering for the Russians by joining their foreign legion called the Wagner Group, which is, it's actually part of their Ministry of Defense in Russia, but it has an air of plausible deniability because they pass themselves off as a PMC, which is a private military corporation or contractor or company, private military corporation. They pass themselves off as mercenaries, but they're really not. They're really paid by the Russian Ministry of Defense, and they do a lot of wet works for them, if you know what I mean by wet works. Yeah, Tommy, them. They do a ton of wet works, Wagner Group. Now, they're populated by a lot of Russians, but also there's Syrians, Iranians, and other traditional allies of Russia who actually volunteer and join the Wagner Group and fight for them. And evidently, there's even North Korean units that are being attached to the Wagner Group. Sort of like how in our armed forces, we can attach different units to each other for different missions. I mean, it's the same concept, but they're doing it with the Wagner Group and bringing foreign mercs into it. So whether, them too, Tommy. The Chechens are part of that, as well as they're also part of the National Guard, which is the official paramilitary of Russia. It used to be called the Internal Troops, which is under their Ministry of the Interior, which is their paramilitary formations. They're combat troops, but they're like home defense-oriented types of troops. They're paramilitary. They're a parallel military structure to the regular Russian army. Now, the Russian army, of course, has 2 million reserves. They have their 1.2 million man active military, which is all their branches. It's their Air Force, their Army, their Navy, and their strategic missile forces, rocket forces. That's the regular Russian military, the 1.2 million. Then you got your 2 million reserves and your 300,000 National Guard, which is their paramilitary, and there are a lot of Chechens in that, as well as in the Wagner Group, which is still the part of the paramilitary, but they're like like they are, but they're unofficial. They're still part of it. They're a parallel military group of paid by the Russian Ministry of Defense. So China has the biggest paramilitary on the face of the earth, the biggest parallel military formation on the face of the earth. They have their national militia, their marine militia, their national construction corps, which is a lot bigger than a corps, like a corps-sized unit. It's huge. They have their PLA Strategic Reserve, which comes under PLA command in a time of war, but in a time of peace, they're paramilitary. They're strictly for home defense. That's not to be confused with the regular military reserves, which are part of the regular military of China, which they have 5 million reserves. And then they have their 4 million man active duty armed forces. 4 million. That's the biggest armed forces on the face of the earth, both in terms of active duty and with reserves combined with that. So they also have the biggest paramilitary on the face of the earth. So all in all, China has enormous forces under arms. They have 29 million men under arms. It's enormous. It's enormous. And their technology, of course, has advanced by leaps and bounds since the 90s. They've come a long, long way since the 90s. But, yeah, I just wanted to come on here and talk about all the missile strikes and the blackout in Ukraine. That's, of course, due to all the missiles that have been hitting, and that's been a regular thing. If everybody doesn't mind hitting the like button so this can get pushed out, because I'm going to talk about a few things, sort of like a refresher. Yeah, Tommy, their numbers are insane. I'm trying. This is sort of an informal setting because I'm actually like on camera. I'm not like normally when I have a lot of thoughts I'm trying to get out. I cover up the camera so that I don't get distracted by looking at myself in it. But yeah, I'm going to discuss some things. I'm going to discuss the just the general direction of things, and the direction of things is that it's all going down a very serious, very bad path right now, because we're coming to a point in time where Ukraine is going to end. That's going to end, but other things are going to begin. Like I've spoken before about, there's different theaters that are going to open up. I very much see that happening. I see more trouble in the Middle East, and there's going to be things that occur with Saudi, because Saudi is inching ever closer to China and Russia joining the Eurasian bloc. And when Saudi Arabia officially ditches the United States completely, there's going to be trouble in the Middle East, because the United States isn't going to leave the Middle East without, putting up a big, big struggle. A struggle they're going to lose, by the way, because their woke military is puny and can't do anything. But nonetheless, the regime has its FF events and other things it likes to pull, and assassinations and other. It plays really dirty around the world. So we can expect to see a lot of dirty things, especially in the Middle East. There's going to be issues with Syria, of course, and evidently there's things flaring up there right now. Allegedly, Turkey's doing something more with that, but that's been going on for years. With the Syrian civil war, Turkey has been involved there actually quite substantially. And, so has Iran, because Iran is an ally of Syria, Bashar al-Assad's regime. So, Iran was a big player in trying to help stabilize Syria during the Syrian civil conflict. But when it happens in the United States, when we have our own Syrian-style conflict, everything's going to unravel. And the ordinary powers that shouldn't be, well, they won't be. They're going to lose their power quickly. People don't even realize that, but they are. They have no way to hold on to their power realistically, because here's the thing. They have a woke military. It's depleted. It's hollowed out. They have given away humongous quantities of weapons to a proxy conflict, weapons that they cannot in fact replace. Our industries, our heavy industries, they're gone. They're gone. They're gone, and they're not coming back. Our military-industrial complex has shrunk significantly. Shrunk to the point where most of our heavy industry is lacking severely, to where we don't have the output that we once had during World War II and the Cold War. Things have steadily been shrinking, and we're dependent upon foreign components for high-tech weapons. And contrary to popular belief, hey Aaron, great to see you. Happy to see you here. Contrary to popular belief, though, we don't get our components from Taiwan. We get them from our enemy, China, giving them a backdoor into everything, as if their insanely phenomenal electronic warfare jamming and signals intelligence and cyber capabilities weren't insane enough, over the top enough. Their power, their immense technological prowess in virtually every field that matters. Their lasers, directed energy, hypersonics, fractional orbital bombardment. You name it. These guys are making miniature artificial stars. As I've said before, they've got particle colliders. China has a wealth of technology, and they have come a long, long way in it. And they are perfecting it, and they have developed it for the explicit use of subduing their enemies with it. So we are their primary enemy, and China has infiltrated, subverted, and steered the United States and all of its institutions, and weaponized them in such a way to where they create policies that are antithetical to us, to the United States, to the American people, but they're pro-CCP. They have gotten in beneath the Western central bankers even, and they have used their MSS, their intelligence agency. It's like their CIA, secret police, everything rolled into one. And they have used their MSS to catch political leaders, the political puppets, the parasites, political parasite class. They've caught them doing things that they ought not be doing. Or they found the one that were willingly sellouts that would sell out willingly. They would sell their mother for, a pack of cigarettes. Those types of dirtbags. They have found those people. They've gotten in under the Western banking elites, the Western satanic banking elites, and they've co-opted many of those political parasites. And they are thereby using them to create those pro-CCP policies, like sell the CCP all these properties, allow the CCP to own the ports, bring in their equipment, their entire units of the PLA, PAP, so on and so forth, and their allies to boot, like Russia and, of course, Iran and Pakistan, North Korea, all of them. Bring them all in, put them all on CCP properties. Build them up for the day that they unleash their fourth generation warfare, their hybrid warfare. If everybody could please hit the like button, please. I'm tired of these algos. My stuff just isn't getting out there to people, and I talk about very important things here because these are things that are going to happen, and these are things people should be ready for. So they are preparing for their invasion of the United States, and I've portrayed it the best way I possibly could, not just in the documentaries, but also in the audio book that I'm working on now. For those who didn't want to read the typed out stories, the audio book is great. I highly suggest it. It's very, very, very long. It literally is about a day long, 24 hours. If you're going on a long trip, it's a great thing for your long trip. It should get you through the whole trip. But they're preparing to do their invasion, their hybrid warfare invasion, where they hit us with Trojan horse shock troops from inside all throughout the United States and every last corner of it, where they hit us with externals crossing the borders from Mexico and Canada, beach landing and parachuting in. That's how they take this country in a matter of several days. Several days is all it would take. So keep that in mind. This is not a hard country to defeat by any means. Our installations, for one thing, are not very secure. They have very light fencing. They're not hard to break through at all with armored vehicles or shock troops, that just go in there. The policies for signing out weapons, the weapons policies on the installations are piss poor, terrible. It takes sometimes over an hour to sign out weapons. Do you understand what I'm saying? And they keep ammunition on the other side of the posts. So as Chi-Com troops ram down the fencing of the installations, and they break in with their shock units, and they're overrunning these installations, and you have unarmed troops they're up in the barracks, or they're out hanging out with friends, and it's late at night, and some of them are asleep or whatever, or a bunch of them are off post, and you got these shock troops breaking into the installation. Do you understand how easy it is to take this country over? Who's going to stop them? And our military's woke. They're woke. They're depleted. They're gone. America's day as a major power has long since passed. We are floating on borrowed time. Believe it. Because all that stuff in the audiobook, that's a best case scenario for us. And it's still horrible. It's horrible. That is an all-out invasion whereby we have not had an internal conflict or a collapse. Same with my other invasion work. That's all been done on purpose to portray a best case scenario for us where we didn't have an internal conflict or a total collapse of our economics, finance, our food, fuel, our everything, our supply chain, all of it. Where we didn't have that collapse. We just had hard economic times, but we didn't have a full-on collapse, and they invaded us head-on. And we still lose horribly. Horribly! And that's what I've portrayed in my invasion work. But then, of course, I have a different timeline, which will be the real timeline. If you believe in the Bible, then you know that the real timeline, as it says in Jeremiah, is we have a collapse. We have famine. That's a collapse, by the way. We have famine. We have a civil conflict because various leaders, it does say this in Jeremiah, various leaders, 50-51, will arise, and there will be conflict or violence, depending on the translation you read. It says conflict or violence will arise in the land between various leaders, plural, like factional leaders, like I put in my Doccu series. So in this nation, being as vast as it is, as heavily populated as it is, who knows what people are doing in the dark? Nobody knows what people are up to. Nobody knows. People could be doing anything. There could be people meeting in secret. That could be in hotel boardrooms. It could be in private clubhouses. It could be in bars. It could be in the old taverns, like they did in the Revolutionary War times. It could be anywhere. They could be meeting in private homes. They could be meeting on compounds. I portrayed all these different things. Even the Free American Army in my docu-series was meeting in the general's office for the whole reserve, because the Army Reserve office is based on, Fort Bragg. So I had that faction meeting in their office of the Army Reserve's general, his office. He was the chief of the Army Reserve. He was a 3-star general, a lieutenant general. And I portrayed all those different aspects of how an internal conflict would boil and fester, and how it would come to the surface. It would begin with a lot of different upheavals, like, of course, you have collapse, which would be the main bringer of these types of miseries. You would have the collapse. It would create such turmoil and tumultuous living that people will become more attracted to those who offer solutions. Ordinary common people who offer solutions. Radicals, kooks, like religious kooks, new political movements. People will be attracted to anybody. I'm not saying these are good groups. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that people will be attracted to that very type of thing. You're going to have that type of thing come up. I guarantee it. You're going to have new political movements. People that are religious kooks or cults. You're going to have that. Absolutely, you're going to have that. You're also going to have besides the new political movements and the religious cults, I covered that. You're going to have the cartels, too. You know, as a matter of fact, I watched something the other night about Mormons in Mexico fighting cartels, fighting them. Yeah. Evidently, there's Mormon colonies in Mexico, and one of them was more like pacifist, but there was another one that was literally engaging drug cartels in combat with rifles, gun to gun, like having firefights with drug cartels. And that made me think of the Mormon state in my docu-series when they fought the La Raza narco state, who was another faction. That was the cartel faction that came up and took land in the United States. Now, what do we have? All the stuff in my documentary is coming true. It's coming to pass, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. There might not be the exact same names for things, but the concepts are happening. They're happening in real time. So, like in my docu-series, there's a drug war in Mexico. It forced the cartels over the border to take refuge in the United States. That's happening now, by the way. And of course, besides that, you had the Mormon state rise up because they saw their church as being co-opted and corrupted by the regime. They saw the church president as a shill, a FEMA shill, like one of those clergy response team members. I even put that in there. You know, I showed all these dynamics of how this thing would look with very real examples. So, you're going to have very many different groups all duking it out with each other. And the exact way I portrayed it, I made this months ago, before this stuff even started happening. I'm not even a prophet. I'm not even a watchman. I'm none of that. I just do damn good research. And that's all I can give myself credit for, because that's all I can say, you know, for myself. But I'm not any type of, pretentious asshole so as to give myself some type of, glorified title. But I do damn good research. So as a testament to the research I do, a lot of that I've researched is actually coming to pass, or has come to pass. Woke militias are even a real thing. As I've mentioned before, there was a group of Antifa who dressed up in their black attire, uniformed appearance. They all wore their black gear. They had unit patches. They all had standardization of small arms and everything. I put woke militias in that. And they were used in human wave assaults because the regime didn't have enough manpower after the military splintered and broke into all those pieces. Because you had your National Guard and you had your reservists going their own way. You had them going their own way because they joined different factions, or they made their own insofar as the Free American Army is concerned. But think about that. What would the military do in an internal conflict? They would splinter. They'd be like dust in the wind. Be going to all these different groups, bringing everything they had with them. So the regime was so desperate, they had to recruit woke militias. They had to recruit woke militias. And lo and behold, that's a real thing. That's a real thing. So you also have all kinds of other movements. Like, you do have secular humanists that want to make America a sort of god. You already see evidence of that. Now, take the whole make America great again, take that to the 10th power. Take that to the 10th power. And you have the National Salvation Revolutionary Front. They're like ultra-nationalists to such an extreme. They wanted to tear America down and rebuild it from the ground up in their own image. As secular humanists, there are people like that put nation above everything. You know, they're so tribalist in their thinking that they'll put that above God to make it its own God unto itself, because they worship the land they live in instead of the God who gave them the land. You know, that's real. That's real. And I represented that. I represented everybody in that hypothetical. Everybody. All the leaders were realistic. You bet your ass they're all realistic. They could all be people that exist. Think about it. They all had real jobs. They all came from real institutions and places and worked at different jobs. You know, even the religious kooks, you know, they lived off of their compound. They were sort of like how the Amish lived, like, but they were Mormon extremists. And they saw the mainstream Mormon church as corrupted by the regime. And that is why they went in and took it over and instilled their own fanatical brand of Mormonism. So there's very real prospects because all these things are happening. They're all happening. Whether people want to acknowledge it or not, it's the truth. They're all happening. Now, whether they all coalesce and create exactly what I had, just with slightly different variations of the name, well, that looks like the direction it's going in. And that's most likely, if I was a betting man, I would bet money on it. It's going to look virtually exactly like the civil conflict I made. Even Texas doing what it's doing now, and all the, you know, hoopla or whatever, and all this talk about it, you know, people are making a big ado about all the stuff that's happening in Texas, you know, but even that is a sign. That's a sign. Because even Texas in my Doccu series was just fanatically independent, you know. It separated, and Florida did too, you know. I mean, all of these different groups had representation in my internal conflict, my Syrian-style Second American internal conflict. And I see it very much happening exactly like that. So really think about that. The work on this channel, and I'm not a prophet, but the work on this channel is about as real as it gets before it's even happened. It's educational. This is Low Budget History Channel, and I really wish more people could see the work. Not because I care about how many subscribers I have, but I care about how many people I can help. And YouTube is not letting me help that many people, if people haven't noticed, because I'm still stagnant at the same numbers I've had for well in excess of a year. Why is that? Because I'm saying and making things that are on target. Because I'm saying and making things, my projects, that are on target. It's as real as it gets before it's even happened. They don't like that. They don't want people being effective planners. Of course not. And when I say they, I mean either these uber-rich, you know, Western banking asswipes, these satanic banking ass clowns, never done a thing in their life, never had any hardship, never knew anything, or these Eastern elites like the CCP. I know I'm probably on a deck of cards somewhere for the Texas region after they take over the United States. I'm probably like the like 2 of clubs or like the 4 of clubs for Texas. Sort of like the deck of cards we had when we went into Iraq for all of Saddam's regime members, when we, like, as the high value targets that we needed to apprehend. I'll probably be on a deck of cards for the Chinese. They'll probably put me as like the 2 of clubs because of all the speaking out and stuff I've done against the CCP, all the projects I've made to convey what they're going to do, what their plans are, their real bona fide plans are. They hate me. I'm sure Russia don't like me very much either. I know the Jesuits hate me. I've said my fill on them. See, who doesn't hate me? So, that is why my numbers are stagnated. That is why I'll never even make the 3,000 subscriber mark. But, nonetheless, I would really like it if people could see my work. I would really like it. Oh yeah, North Korea. Yes, Shadow Mask. Yeah, they'd really hate me too, man. They'd really hate me too. North Korea is basically just an appendage of China anyway. North Korea owes China for its entire existence. Same with like Pakistan, because China's helped them modernize and build up their military. They've helped them with their wars against India. They've kept North Korea safe from us. Without China, we would have taken over North Korea and made one Korea with South Korea. But China came and saved North Korea's ass, and they kicked our ass enough to where it was a stalemate. They saved North Korea's bacon from the fire. China just had that human wave, just had like literal manpower to just overrun whole areas. 1.5 billion people. They call that human resource. I don't like the term, but if you really think about it, you know, when it comes to China, it is a resource. Those cities like Lego people. They can build their military factories like Lego people. They churn out vehicles like it's nobody's business. They have the biggest, most powerful military the world has ever seen or known. And it doesn't even matter that they have, you know, less aircraft carriers than us. They still have more of everything else that matters than we do. They have more missiles than we do, from intercontinental all the way down to tactical and cruise missiles as well. They have more tanks, a lot more tanks. They have a lot more tanks. They have a lot more combat planes. They have an enormous amount of combat aircraft. Way more combat aircraft than we could ever have. They have the biggest navy. They have the biggest submarine fleet in their navy. They have the biggest navy. Sure, you know, they only have 4 aircraft carriers. Their 4th one's about to roll out. I mean, full-scale aircraft carriers. And they're working on about 7 helicopter carriers, which could double as aircraft carriers if they have a jump jet that they can put on them that they can use. China, though, you know, we may have more carriers, but here's the thing. Carriers are obsolete for power projection. They're obsolete for power projection. That means that if you're going to sail your aircraft carriers all around the world to project your power, it doesn't work against a country like China or Russia, who can sink your aircraft carriers with hypersonic missiles or specialized ballistic missiles like the DF-26B or the DF-21D that are specially made to kill aircraft carriers and large ships. Also, anti-ship missiles that are coastal based are pretty damn effective too. China has an enormous amount of missiles, more than anybody on Earth, and that's all their missiles combined, of every class and size and type. They have more missiles than anybody. Russia's second after China. China has the biggest land-based, sea, and air-based missile forces on the face of the Earth. Russia is second. Russia's second in tanks. Russia's second in armored vehicles, whether that's armored personnel carriers, MRAPs, armored trucks, infantry fighting vehicles. China has way more than Russia in that category, and tanks. Not way more in tanks if you take Russia's boneyard fleet, but just if you take Russia's active tanks and all of China's tanks, China has basically twice the amount of tanks Russia has. Russia only would have close to China tanks if you counted their boneyard numbers, but most of those tanks aren't even working. They're like old obsolete, like T-54/55s, you know, that don't even run anymore. You know, so Russia's second and all that. The only thing Russia's really tied with China in is the artillery. For all intents and purposes, they both have the same amount of artillery. When you take everything that's storage and active, because China's storage numbers counts towards their paramilitary and their reserves, so I count that as basically being active. Even though Western sources try to shirk it and they try to pretend like, you know, if it's not listed as, you know, with an active unit, then it's not there. No, it's bullshit. They don't count all the storage numbers that China has because they don't count China's massive reserves, and they don't count even their paramilitary, which is freakishly humongous. So Russia's tied with China in artillery, and they both have the most artillery in the world anyway, both of them. They're tied. Each has the most artillery in the world. China has the most tanks, the most armored vehicles. Russia's second in both of those categories. China has the most combat aircraft in the world by a humongous gulf. By a humongous gulf. You know, yeah, Russia, if you take all their strategic bombers in storage, you know, they have more strategic bombers than anybody because they do maintain those and they keep those on reserve. And China has the second most strategic bombers. But overall combat planes, because of the freakish quantity of fighters and tactical ground attack aircraft that China has, plus their strategic bomber fleet with that, They have the most combat planes by a humongous gulf than anybody. Russia, they're a close second. Well, not close second. It would be they're. What I mean is Russia is second, but they'd be close with us in the amount of like fighters and fighter bombers. But we actually have a little more fighters and fighter bomber aircraft in that category than does Russia. But Russia has more strategic bombers, which pushes them a little bit over us in terms of overall numbers. So they still technically outnumber us in combat aircraft. So Russia is still number 2 after China, but China leads by this humongous gulf of like over 1,000 planes. It's like 1,050 combat aircraft that China outnumbers the rest of the world in. I mean, any other nation, you pick one, China outnumbers Russia and the United States by a huge gulf. So China's just they're a monster. Nobody can defeat them. They have the most powerful, biggest military on the face of the earth right now, and nobody can defeat them. America trying to defeat China is like a pipe dream. It could just never happen. It's over. You know, we have this depleted, hollow, small, and it's so small it can't even make recruiting goals. And I mean, who really wants to join a military that forces you to take something into you that you don't want, this beast mark? Who really wants to join that? And who really wants to be bombarded with woke shit day in and day out? Who really wants that? You know? Who wants to be told to go on welfare? Who wants to not be able to train because, you know, for key systems, the ammunition for such is so low because we had to send a whole bunch of it to Ukraine, or we left a bunch in Afghan, and we just don't have enough built to replace the that we would normally use for training ammunition. We just have to save our ammunition for combat because we don't have enough for training. Who wants to join a force like that? Seriously. Seriously. The direction we're going is to disaster. That's a great title for tonight's little ad hoc show. You know, like I said, I didn't do a Tuesday show. I slept pretty much all day and all night. You know, I read my story this morning, so now this is going to be like my Tuesday thing that I would have done yesterday. And just in time, my my little new uniform came in. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's pretty tight. I like this, man. It's like a piney woodland type of camouflage. This is for like the PLA Strategic Rocket Forces, but it's pretty tight. I like this shit, man. This is tight. Looking at myself in it. I mean, you know, it's just pretty sweet, man. It's like ready to rock. You know, I got my piece there. I'm just having fun. I'm just cutting up, but no. Yeah, I mean, I just decided to come on and do this because, you know, things are going in a bad way. And exactly what it says in the Bible, because I believe the Bible before I believe anything else, exactly what it says in the Bible is what's happening. That's the direction it's going. Collapse, i.e. famine. Multi-way internal conflict, Syrian style, just like I made a documentary of. Many men, or violence or conflict will erupt between many leaders. I said many men, many leaders is what it says. And depending on the translation, it will either say violence or conflict. That is a multi-way civil conflict, a civil war. Then we get invaded by enormous foreign armies. As if China is not massive enough. I mean, they could do it all by themselves, you know, in theory. I mean, they are big enough to do it all by themselves. To take a country of our size all by themselves, they could do it. But they have other buddies that share their values. Meaning they have partners that hate the shit out of us and want revenge on us for either being a thorn in their side or getting in the way of their ambitions, such as Russia, you know, and all the smaller countries that owe China for their very existence, like North Korea, Pakistan, and others. So This is going to be a humongous coalition, and China is going to lead it because China obviously is going to provide the lion's share of the armies that invade because they're so massive. And then plus they want to turn this into a colony called New China. I'm sure that's what they'll call it. No, Chinese are kind of like generic with their shit. They name stuff really generically. Like they name everything by type or number or you know, like new this or you know, like China restaurant number 2 or new China restaurant number 4. You know, I mean, I've seen stuff like that. It's just goofy. I mean, but like I can see them naming this New China in all honesty. You know, all jokes aside, but you know, that's what they want. Wei Feng himself, the Chi-Com defense minister, has said in his own speech that he wants to basically exterminate the American people. Or enslave them, but he said he insinuated that he wants to exterminate the American people. That's why I call him the Heinrich Himmler of the East, because he sounds and talks just like Himmler did about the peoples of the East back in Germany's fascist era, back in the National Socialist times. See, Hitler deemed the peoples of the East as inferior peoples, and he called the war against the Soviet Union a Vernichtungskrieg, meaning an extermination war, or a war of extermination. That is what China is going to do to us. A Vernichtungskrieg. You know, Vernichtungskrieg. They're going to put an extermination war on us. Why I do the work I do on this channel is to educate people. Education. Get you ready for what's coming. Education. Learn all you can while you can. Because this channel, it'll be gone one day. One day they're going to scrub it. And I hope each and every one of you, if you found something on here helpful, that you have taken it and you have saved it. That you have ripped it or copied and pasted it, if it's the stories in the community tab, or whatever, if it's the videos, rip the video. Whatever you need to do, take whatever you want. It's all free. I believe everything should be free that's helpful to others. This is my kingdom work. This is my kingdom work. For all my imperfections and all my flaws, my head injury, it causes me sometimes to slur my speech or sometimes, you know, have issues when I walk. For all my imperfections, I've done the best I can do to help others. And I don't ask for a damn penny. I don't want no money from nobody. I don't care. I have everything I could ever need. I could even get a bigger house if I wanted, but this house is perfect for me. This house is perfect for me. I love this house. God has really blessed me. God has blessed me. I'm very grateful. So, I don't ask for nothing for this. All I ask is that people educate themselves, because the more people learn, the more people that are prepared, the stronger we are as a people. The more of a chance we have as a whole people. It's all about individualism. If the individual is strong, and you have a bunch of different strong individuals, then as a single entity, with everybody together, who are all strong individuals, you have a strong unit. You're stronger as a people. You have more of a chance of making it as a people. So really think about that. Really think about that. It's all about individualism. Individualism. Because the stronger you are as an individual, the stronger you are as a people or as a collective group. Because if everybody's strong, everybody can pull their own weight. For the couple that can't pull their weight, like say a handicapped person or whatever, if a bunch of strong people are around, they can help that person that's in need. You don't know who God's going to put in your path that you need to help. In my stories, I make it a point to talk about rescuing the injured and rendering aid to the injured because you do your damnedest not to leave injured people behind. Somehow, some way, you get them out of there and you work on them. You try to save their life. That's part of integrity. Doing the right thing when nobody's watching. Well, you know what? When somebody's freaking wounded, you better help them. Your ass might be wounded. You might be the one in the sling. You might need help from somebody. Then what? That's why we all need to be strong individuals. So we can be the people. We can be the people that help other people. And we can help ourselves. Take care of ourselves. That's why I do what I do here. It's all about education. It's all about people learning from all this material. It's all about people not being a fear the unknown. Meaning that if people don't know what to expect, then they're fearful of it. God tells us not to be fearful for one thing, but here's the thing. Because it's a natural human emotion to be scared of the unknown, you're still going to have people that are scared of it. But you know what? Education alleviates that substantially. If people give a damn about their future, then they should look at all this material, because not only does it go perfectly with everything the Bible says that's going to happen, it does, it really does. Not only does it go for hypothetical work, it goes so well with everything the Bible says is going to happen. So well. So well. It's articulated all so well. And so it's such a shame more people haven't been able to use the channel as a resource, because there's a lot of people that just can't find the channel due to the algos. I'm shadow banned. I know it. I know I am. Heavily. I'm stagnated. Same numbers. Look at this. I only got 7 likes on this video. That's pathetic. I must be saying some shit they really hate. But anyways, it's all about education. It's all about learning. People fear the unknown, but if you can learn and you can educate yourself and you can anticipate what's coming, you have nothing to worry about. You have nothing to worry about. Because you already know what it'll be like. And you, as a result, will have become a more effective emergency planner. Meaning that because you can now anticipate how things will move and look and be in the future, you can be a much better emergency planner as a result. Meaning you understand exactly what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and why it needs to be done. And you'll be better for it. Because you can analyze what the characters do, whether it's the audiobook or whether it's the typed out stories, and you can see all the different situations that they've been in. They're all realistic, like too realistic. Because I based a lot of that off of some of my own experiences. And that of those around me as well. And I blended it with the enemy and how they think, how they do things, how their equipment works, what type of weapons they have. I blended my personal experience and of some of my fellow soldiers I went to war with, and I meshed it together with the enemy and their capabilities, their weapons, everything, doctrines, to make these masterpieces that portray the future. Damn accurate. Damn accurate. I didn't just do it all for no reason. I did it to help people, genuinely to help people. I really hope people take advantage of that. I really do. I really hope people take advantage of that. I'm serious. But I've been going almost an hour here, so y'all hadn't seen Porky in a while. Here you are. Here's my Porky. What you doing, boo-boo? It's Porky butt. He's laying in his tower. He's a good boy. He's a good Porky. He's a good Porky. He's a good Porky. You got Granny May. Yeah, that's you. You see you? You see yourself? Do you see yourself? That's you, Grammy. That's you. Of course, can't forget Boss Romero. He's fat. Look how fat he is. Dude, you're fat. Got a big head, too. Well, everybody, if anybody has any questions or anything they want to say, go ahead and speak now or forever hold your peace. I gave my little serious pep talk. I gave a little bit of the goings on in the proxy country. And hey, Crystal, thank you. I talked a bit about the goings on in the proxy country, what's about to happen there. Any day they could invade. I mean, it's getting close to that time frame. It's getting close to that time frame. Now that the power's out, any day they could invade. The Russians could invade that proxy and finish this whole thing. I hope they do, because I'm tired of hearing about it. I hope they just do the responsible thing and get this whole shit over with. But if anybody has anything they want to say, go ahead and speak now. I also talked about the internal conflict tonight. I'm just summarizing everything. Gave a little pep talk. So it was a pretty decent video tonight overall. But I hope people take everything seriously, because it's all meant to be serious. So everybody's saying here, to touch all these buttons all the time. No problem, Rebecca, no problem. I'm glad to see you. What time is it? Thank you, Grandma Deb and Crystal and Tommy, Angry Scandinavian, and Shadow Mask. Oh yeah, that's right. I made you a mod, Shadow Mask. You've always been cool. I made a bunch of new people mods because I remember there's a lot of good people here. You know what, Crystal? You've always been good too. I've seen you here for a long time. Whoop. I didn't mean to do that. I gotta make you a mod. Whoa, what did I do? Sorry, I hit the wrong button. I went to your channel and it took me off the live. Ah. Yeah, I keep trying to make you a mod, and it sends me to your channel, which takes me off of this. Hold on. All right, I got you now. All right, now you're a moderator. Oh, yeah, no problem, Grandma Deb. No problem. All right, you too, Tommy.